services, they have a lot of other services. Once you partner up with them, and there's really no cost to you, although I send them some funding out every year because I can, but they're not asking for that. That would be helpful. So terrible.
I don't know if you have an answer for this, but I come from a small parish. One of my challenges is just getting volunteers in, even just for catechists in general. And then I have to step out and get catechists with special needs. The things I've heard is, well, that should be a paid position because that's like special training. So how, I mean, is there anything you can offer someone like me? I've asked for like 3 years to get someone in. So I finally have a young girl that's coming in now. So it is getting there. But it's just really difficult, I think, to get volunteers and to teach, the kids in your PSR program. Just wondering how you can deal with that.
She was wondering how you could get volunteers in to teach at a program where there's special needs children. In our parish, I do have to do the sign language because it's very hard in Lincoln County to find anyone to do sign language. But one of our biggest resources was teens who have been confirmed. They want to do it. Like all of my classes that have a special needs child, even if the child just has a simple reading disability or they just need a little extra help focusing, they have a teen volunteer, and that volunteer is trained on what to do, and as long as it's safe. There's some situations where it's not always safe to have a teenager work one-on-one with someone, and in that case, we come up with other arrangements. But the teenager is trained on how to work with that child, and they're paired one-on-one as a buddy in the classroom, and so if that child needs extra help, like reading, but the child wants to read the passage out loud, the assistant will whisper like difficult words in their ear. And so it's something where the teens are mentors in the entire classroom, but they're assigned to this particular child to help with those needs. And we find in our parish, we have far more teens that want to volunteer. It's super easy for them to do it, whether they're doing it for service hours or they just want to help. And they're really willing to be trained. Yeah, like I'll train them because if I can go out to different parishes too, but in my parish, because I've had the training in multiple disabilities, I'll bring the child and the parent first, the child with disabilities and the parent first, to find out what kind of things that they need, what kind of things have they tried in school that have worked, what things does their school do that doesn't work at all. And so we'll see what we can bring into the classroom. And then I'll work with the teenager to pair them up with a student that's probably going to be a good match for them. Like if we have a teenager that's incredibly patient, I have a particular child in mind that teenager will be a great match for, and we train them specifically on that child's needs. And so if the next year they're working with a different child, I'll train them on a different need. We're fortunate in our program that we also have one of our catechists is a special needs teacher. So I can bounce things off of her. So there's people in the parish who are probably special education teachers or they're counselors, and they may not be able to be there every week, but maybe they can host a training, or maybe they can just give you some feedback. And so we utilize people in whatever capacity they want. So if there's someone who can only work one day, I'm like, all right, we can use you to help train these people in autism, or help train some of our catechists and how to deal with a child who can't focus well. And so we just go to your parish and see what resources are there, and even if they can't be there every week, they'll probably want to help with something. But definitely use your teenagers there. Teenagers are very willing and able to work, and they love having the larger responsibilities.
If you're having trouble getting volunteers, or you don't know where the people are, the diocese now has a program that we're all on called Parish Solve. Run the query. Just run the query. Adults with bachelor's degrees, adults, just run the query. Those names will come up, and then call them and ask them to help. So there's lots you can do if you use the technology that's available through Parish Solve right now. Just run those queries, and that will help you.
Mary Fran, did you have a suggestion also, or a question?
Well, I would just suggest too, having a spice aid assigned to having a spice aid assigned to a particular child, and let them go with that child through their classes. It's one-on-one. They sit with the child during class. That's what we did in our program, and it was very, very helpful for everybody, not just the child with special needs, but for everybody else in the class too. Because if the child was not able to stay focused in a class, the Spice Aid was able to take them out and bring them back in, but also able to interpret whatever was going on in class as was needed. And if you don't know that you have those people, I bet you do have them if you put some kind of an ad in your bulletin. But that was a really, really important aspect that kind of kept our program going well. And that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mary Fran. So Mary Fran was explaining about how Spice Aids work in the classroom, and just to reiterate so that we can all hear, a Spice Aid is what St. Brigid has traditionally called a person who is just working one-on-one for one-on-one intervention and specialization, but also to support whole classrooms. And some of the things that has been done before is to just have volunteers and adults that work in groups, work in sections, or work specifically in sacramental preparation, assigned one-on-one with the child to go through their sacraments with them. And then Mary Fran said that this is something that has been a benefit to not just the child that is being supported, but to everyone that is there in the classroom, and to the teachers, and to the aides that are there, and the parish as a large. Other questions that we have for our panelists today? Jerry?
So there are a lot of parents here. What, in terms of advocacy in your own parish, maybe outside, what are some tips that you would like to share with the group on being a parent advocate?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of advocacy, the big thing is, one, not being afraid to be who you are, and to be a participant, and to help your kids to participate and have them be a visible presence. That is the first thing, because a lot of parents, I deal with a situation where, my son, because of his disability and his mental health issues, became prone to violent outbursts and things like that. And a lot of families in those situations kind of suffer in silence. What I have found was just being willing to come out and share the story and just be a public face goes a long way. And I've been contacted by hundreds of families around Ohio saying, oh, my son was like that, my daughter went through that as well, thank you. Now I know someone I can reach out to. But then the other thing is to find partners that are willing to work with you. I don't know how many of you have ever written a letter to your legislator. I was naive enough to think I could write a letter to my state senator, they're going to want to meet with me right away, and we're going to change Ohio. Boy, was I dumb. But if you find out who are those people that are already advocating for persons with disabilities, how can you connect your story with their work? People like the Catholic Conference of Ohio, I know in the diocese, the Office for Social Concerns, and others, who have that sort of the ability to help you navigate through the legislative minefield. But it's to not try to do it on your own as a lone ranger, but to find good partners that will work with you. And then, once you know what to ask people for, once you know, hey, who to write these letters to, what those letters need to say, that will come a long, long way. But for me, it was, oh yeah, I want to do this, and no, that's not the way it works exactly. So find a way to tell your story and share that. But find partners you can connect your story to their work. It's my advice.
And I just wanted to add that for people who are able to, this is not everyone's personality, but I always made my children feel like this is your place too. You have a right to be here. You don't have to hide in the cry room. You don't have to hide in the back. From day one, I had them sitting in the front row pew. And people will look at us, that's fine, they can do that. And if people are like, well, why are they there even though they can't sit still the whole time? And I've looked at some people, I'm like, even the child with no special needs can't sit still all the time. But they have every right to be here, and that this was the way this child was made, and they're perfect the way they are. And they have every right to develop a relationship with God. And so it's always my perspective that no one has the right to stand in someone's way of a relationship with God. And so we march right in there in the front row, and that's just, now, it was, sometimes when we first started, we got a lot of stares, and now people are used to our children. And now my oldest, who was the 2-year-old with autism who couldn't sit still and scream through mass, he's an altar server, he's a Eucharistic minister, he plays in the bell choir. He also helps with PSR, and this past weekend he was a server at our auction dinner. You would never know the difference anymore because he's so involved. And so to the point where they're able to participate, I always encourage my children to, and I was just the kind of person who never let anyone tell them they couldn't.
Yeah, that's interesting though. I've been told to take my kids to the cry room so many times. And the best is when someone would come up to me and say, oh, you know, there's a cry room right over there. And I'd say, well, you know, my family's been a part of this parish since 1956. I'm pretty sure I know where the cry room is, right? So I think that's right. Just, you know, being there and being present to the best of everyone's abilities. And, you know, with Katie, that was, you know, Katie would measure, because she hates singing, right? Katie hates singing. She would measure that, you know, mass for us by the number of songs. How many songs left? 3 more songs? 2 more songs? Okay, just 1 more. And then it's like, oh, I forgot the Lamb of God. That's a song that counts. And then she's mad at me, like, you lied. That's a song. There was, you know, for us with Andrew, that was a problem because, you know, Andrew's behavioral issues, and Andrew makes sounds. Andrew's never quiet. Andrew always is humming, lawing, flapping. When he's happy, he's loud. When he's mad, he's loud. Just who he is. Doesn't faze me. I'm used to it. But I can understand some people. You know, we get stared at everywhere we go. We have people move. You know, we sit down at a restaurant, we have people move tables. That's just the way we're used to it. That's our life. It just is what it is. There was one time at, you know, what we were trying to do when Andrew was really little was to try to set goals for ourselves that were attainable. You know, we would say, today we're going to make it through the opening hymn before Andrew had, you know, we need to get, Andrew wants to leave or get out of there. You know what? Great. We made it to the opening hymn. Today we're going to make it to the gospel. And let's see if we'll make it to the gospel, just sort of in increments. Andrew's only sat through a whole mass 3 times in his whole life. Only 3 times in his whole life. All 3 times were real gifts. Very powerful. But there was one time when Andrew, we were so close. And Andrew, you know, he was just rocking, you know, finger flicking, flapping, humming. But he was just sort of sitting there doing his thing. And it was so good. I was so happy. And when we made it to the sign of the peace. And I remember when it was time past peace, I gave my wife a little hug and I said, we're going to make it. We're going to make it. I was so happy. And then an older gentleman who was sitting in front of us turned around and passed the peace. And he was not having a very good day. And he turned around and he said to me, you can go to Gehenna. Let's use an old Bible term for it, right? Now, unfortunately, that was before the changes to the Roman Missal. So Catholic muscle memory kicked in, and I said, and also with you. Now that is a bad story. And it's always good when you can make your priest laugh in the confessional, right? That got a laugh in the confessional. But at the same time, you know, when my son was coming, you know, my son, we sort of had to surrender custody of our son in order for him to get treatment in Ohio. When he was 18, we were able to resume custody, but they said, oh, you figure out a place for him to be, because da-da-da-da-da. And, you know, we were very fortunate that someone in our parish came up to me one day and said, you know what, I'm going to buy a house and I want to be your son's landlord. I'm going to rent him at a rate he can afford. And for me, you know, that person was able to do that because they were familiar with us and our stories. We didn't leave Mass because we didn't give up. And Catholics are like everyone. You may or may not hear this. There's a rumor Catholics are people. Right? You may have heard this. We are, you know, any one of us and any one of our pews are capable of being that guy that's having a really bad day. And any one of us are capable of being that person who said, you know, I want to be the leader. I want to be there. But it's all of us, you know, as parents and others to say, you know, we want to be that person who's standing with those families with disabilities. And just being that presence is huge advocacy.
lot of people. And I don't know if there's anything you could share about like, your own personal story, a little personal, about how you kind of continue your relationship and attending Mass and how that looks for you as a family with disabilities and you needing to go in and out and things of that nature.
Yeah, that was a huge challenge for us as a family. Because of taking Andrew in and out all the time, I think, my wife and I, it was a solid, almost 14 years where we couldn't worship together as a couple, with any sense of regularity. So that was a big challenge. But for me, we looked for opportunities to pray together at home in the family. Opportunities to do that sort of thing was a huge help. So it wasn't just we knew that as far as Mass, in a perfect world, it would have been the 5 of us sitting in our own little pew, doing our own little thing. But that wasn't the world that we had. So, we would take turns taking Andrew out of Mass, or, more often than not, if it was my turn on Sunday to be on Andrew duty, I'd go Saturday night, the night before, because I knew I wouldn't be sticking around for very long, and we would flip-flop. And that was really, really hard. But we just came up with ways to pray and to live our faith together as a family. And, I've worked for the church for most of my adult life, too, so trying to get my kids involved in other aspects of that. Katie's my PSR hallway monitor every single Sunday, and the kids love her. She loves the kids, and she's involved in it and feels like and it was when she saw confirmation kids getting ready. She's like, hey, it was when she was 20. I think I'm ready for that, too. I like that. And she expressed her own willingness, desire to do that. You're right, though, it is a huge challenge. There's times when there's been like, I wish we could do more. I wish that, in a perfect world, I wish that Andrew could have gone to our Catholic school. That would have been a great scenario for him. It just wasn't meant to be for us. So there's times when, it's hard. When we had to surrender custody of Andrew, I remember going to the parent into our church and breaking down. I mean, just really the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my whole life. But my pastor was there, and everyone was there to support us and to love us as a family. So we've had that. But yeah, you're right. No doubt that that's a huge challenge. But there have been times when it's been harder, sometimes when it's been easier. But just like with all of us, with the challenges we face with life, we've all had times that we've had doubts. We've all had times that we've been mad at God. We've all had wonderful moments of grace to share with people. And so we handle the highs and lows just like everyone else, I think.
Yeah, we did a lot of the tag teaming too, and for us it was just really helpful to give ourselves permission to do what God is calling us to do right now. God is calling us to raise these children, and sometimes people can't be there fully at Mass because they're caring for a sick parent, or they have any number of things where that's where God is calling them right now. And so we had to stop feeling guilty that we can't sit here through the whole Mass. We have to get up, and some of us have to walk our kids back and forth outside, and we have to maybe read the readings on our phone while we're doing it. And so just understanding that this is the season that you're in right now, and God knows that you would be there sitting in the pew if you could, but this is how He's calling you to be right now. And that maybe this is my time where I'm not going to be able to sit in Mass at all for the whole time, but somebody else, like I said, they may be caring for an aging parent or a sick relative, and that's the time where they're going to struggle to be in Mass. And I think all of us, having a child with disabilities or not, all of us are going to go through a time where it's going to be really difficult to sit through Mass the whole time every week without something that gets in that way. And you just have to give yourself permission to do the best that you can and know that God understands. He's watching. He can see what's going on.
Jen, how does that dynamic look for you, having 11 children?
Well, my husband Bob would say that each child only needed one trip out to the parking lot, and then they behaved the rest of the time. But when you were talking, we've all gone through getting about a church and missing the gospel, missing the consecration because of children. I guess what we need to understand is just keep the doors open. keep the doors open to all of God's children, because they really, God gave them to us, and God is never going to abandon us. And I think that's what kept Bob and I going, not with just Megan, because honestly, Megan's the least of our problems. But the other teacher, he gave us these children. He's not going to abandon us. And so that gives us strength and faith that we can continue to go on with that. But yes, 11 children challenging, but they rallied.
Anyone else?
I know a child who has the syndrome of Turner, so she doesn't grow. She's like, right now she's 12 years old, she's disabled. And like 2 years ago, she was preparing for communion, and I remember this was in another diocese. So we were coming out in the parking lot, and another child told her, "How come that you are 11 years old and my sister is 6 and she's taller than you?" And she just said, "I don't know." So later I was talking to the mother of the child, and she says that this is happening constantly, that other children ask why she's so little, and at school she doesn't participate in like sports or other events that due to her short stature. My question is, how do you deal with bullying from other children?
I think you're talking about a school and parish setting. That culture has to be changed. Okay? That's just not appropriate, not called for. And luckily in our situation, we had older siblings, and I don't think so. If there was any bullying, I never really heard about it. And people have to realize that they're going to learn from this individual. Bullying's a tough issue, but certainly it's hopefully getting better. That we're more compassionate and understanding of people with special needs. And schools do a great job. I know there's never, very seldom an issue in St. Catherine's with the bullying issue. And if it is, it's addressed. And not in a harsh manner, but in a more understanding manner of what has happened and what's going to be done about it.
And from a DRE perspective, this is something that I address on a yearly basis, whether or not it's an issue. Like, we will have a meeting with all the parents and all the kids, and I'll lay out what are the rules on bullying. But then also in every lesson, I'll just give examples like this. We'll talk about in the picture, this person is Asian, and this person is rich, and this person is poor, and this one's in a wheelchair, and this one is not in a wheelchair. Which one does God love more? And I'll wait, and every single one of the kids is like, God loves them all the same. And so then that's the conversation that we'll start. It's like, okay, so when you see someone who doesn't speak the same language, how can you be a friend to that person? Or if you see someone who is on crutches, how can you be a friend to that person? And just instead of framing it as not bullying, but how can you be a friend to that person? How can you welcome that person? So they're growing up with all of these different examples of people who are different than them and giving them responses so that when something happens and they see someone getting bullied, I hope that they have the tools to stand up and say, you know what, that's not right. God loves that person too. And so I just try to give everyone the tool. And we have had to deal with some people who said things that weren't appropriate, and so we talk to them one-on-one, and then we also come back as a class, and without naming names and saying that person said something bad, like this is a situation that happened, let's brainstorm some ways that we can do better next time, and just always try to give them more and more tools. Because my kids have been the victims of bullying, and it's not fun to be on that end of it, and so I just want all kids to get the tools they need to be able to stand up for people instead of wanting to join in with the bullying because that's what's seen as cool and fun.
Yeah, I think it's I affirm absolutely everything that was said, and the fact that you were willing to talk to that parent and to kind of be a compassionate voice and listen, that's really wonderful on your part. And we do the best we can to teach our kids positive things, to teach them positive words. But we live in a world where adults are bullying people right now. And we live in a world where we don't value the other. right now. I was going for a walk with my son on Broad Street, and we oftentimes hold hands because he's a little bit of a flight risk. If he sees something he really likes, now he's 6'2", 280 pounds. I physically cannot stop him from doing that, but if we're holding hands, usually he likes to hold my hand, and we'll just kind of do the right thing. And obviously, here we are, two adult men holding hands, walking up Broad Street in Whitehall, and we had some guys in pickup trucks slow down and yell some slurs at us, right? Now, my immediate response was, don't judge our love. I thought it was funny. But at the same time, because of that, we can teach our kids the very best when we live in a world where there's constantly constant bullying. But the fact that you were willing to just talk to that parent as a person to a person, that is really, you're living the solution right there, just by living a compassionate life and being with them and sitting next to them at church and inviting them to your activities and sitting next to them at the restaurant and all of that stuff. You remember, probably the biggest case of bullying of disability comes from the gospel, the healing of the blind man. You all remember the story, right? Because in ancient times, if you were born with a disability, what was the cause? Sin, right? And so the question is, who sins? This man or his parents? I've had people ask me, oh, do you think maybe something you did in your life is the reason why you have 2 kids with disabilities? As if God worked that way, right? 2,000 years later, parents, sometimes we get bullied in that way. And so the response back that we have to that, I think, is the very same one that Jesus gave, which you remember Jesus' response, right? Neither this man nor his parents sinned, but this person is here so that the works of God can be revealed in them, right? Shown in this moment. And so when you encounter a parent who's struggling or a young person struggling, the question I try to ask myself is, where can the work of God be shown in this moment? That's always the challenge back to me. And from the fact you were just willing to have that conversation and spend time with that parent, you're doing that. Thank you.
And also we have to remember the mission of Christ. He came for those who are in the margins, for the poor, the people that are vulnerable. So that's the mission of Christ, and that was present. So let's remember that we continue that mission in whatever role we have in our communities. With the attitude, welcome, allow it.
Thank you. Any questions? Had some great discussions. Thank you to each of our panelists for being with me. Before we conclude for our day, I'd like to draw your attention to the back wall. I know that I hope each of you had a chance to think about some of the joys and hopes and challenges that you faced in our shared mission. And Esther, did you want to lead a little bit of our conclusion of our activity?
Do you have the cards?
If you didn't have a chance to put your Post-it note up, go ahead and take a moment and think about some of the joys, hopes, and challenges that you face in your ministry or as a parent in helping prepare children for Sacraments with disabilities.
Thanks to the panel that we have and the support of the Diocese of all of us, we would like to take away a commitment because we know the importance of your role in the community. So this is something for takeaway. Say Sacrament for Persons with Disabilities
I commit myself to the following action in relation to persons with disabilities in my parish and community. And you will have 1 minute to 2 minutes to write something that you will willing to take to your parish. Just 1 minute or 2 minutes. And we will ask one senior if he can close us in prayer and give us a blessing so we can send us for to continue our mission as a faithful church.
Let us pray together and bow our heads and ask for God's mercy and well as his presence. Lord, you are always present with us and have been present with us now. Allow us to recognize that presence in our actions, in one another, and to see your face in all we meet. Keep us open to your message, to your people, and to your church. We ask the Lord to bless each and every one who has come today, strengthen them in their ministry and in their work. And we ask all of these things as we journey towards Easter in the name of Christ our Lord. And may Almighty God bless us all in every way in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you once again to our panelists and to Esther and to Andrew. Enjoy the rest of your day and thank you so much. Have a wonderful afternoon.
Against the stained glass? Well, I mean, just right where you are.
If you used your coffee mug, if you could please put it in the back of the room.
I don't know if I can reach the stained glass, but no. The only thing is, before, and it was all back there, so I'm not sure I probably fall. But I was like, okay, now, let me see. I'm not, you can tell I'm not a... You want me to look at you? So, but can you look forward, like a sign in some way? So this is going to be a stage thing, yes. I know, I'm trying to think what I can say. But I was like, broken out. They're not exactly like stained glass, but I mean, the rich colors just